What's up YouTube, welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I am doing a deck tech on Toxtricity VMAX. This list was submitted by my patron Andy M. So shout out to Andy for submitting this list and thank you for being a patron of mine. For more information about my Patreon, you can find that in the description down below. So what we're going to be doing today is looking at this list that was not created by me. Like I said, it was made by Andy. And we're going to deck profile it, and then I'm going to talk about some changes I might make, some thoughts I have on the list and the deck as a whole. Before we get into that, shout out to PotownStore.com, the best place for you to get PTCGO codes, and make sure you use code CELIO for 5% off. So this is in the post-rotation Team Up Through Darkness Ablaze standard format, and the deck is focused around Toxtricity VMAX. So we'll just take a quick look at Toxtricity VMAX in case you don't already know what it does. Toxtricity VMAX has 320 HP, which is kind of the norm for VMAXs, it seems. And it has one attack, which is G-Max Riot for Lightning colorless. It does 160 plus. If your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned, this attack does 80 more damage. So for 3 energy, you swing 240 plus the poison damage of 10 if the Pokemon is poisoned. So that's a total of 240 and then poison damage between turns. So for 3 energy, and that's not really too bad. Especially since it doesn't seem like fighting types are really prevalent in the post-rotation standard format, or at least they have not shown up too much in the meta. So Toxtricity VMAX might not be getting too countered, at least by typing, which could be nice for the deck. Now Lightning does come with a ton of support, as you'll see Andy has included in this list. We did lose Thunder Mountain and also Electropower, which are very important, but this list has a lot of neat tools, and I also have some suggestions we'll talk about. The way we're going to be applying that poison for G-Max Riot to do its full damage is going to be with the new Galarian Slowbro V. 210 HP, it is a basic Pokemon, of course. It has the ability Rapid Fire Poison. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may make your opponent's active Pokemon poisoned. So you have to get this into the active, poison your opponent's Pokemon, and then retreat out into Toxtricity and swing. It might sound like a lot, but it's honestly kind of easy to do, especially with how this list is structured to make this work consistently and fluidly. So we're never going to be using Tripping Shot, the attack on Galarian Slowbro V, and the retreat cost you'll notice is 3, so Air Balloon is not going to work to get Galarian Slowbro V out of the active spot. There are 3 Dark City in this list, so basic Dark Pokemon in play have no retreat cost. Galarian Slowbro V, Dark Pokemon, basic Pokemon, so it has no retreat cost as long as Dark City is in play. For getting Galarian Slowbro out of there and maybe also into the active position, there are 4 Switch, which 4 Switch is kind of a common thing in the metagame. It seems a lot of lists are running 4 copies or at least some copies of Switch because mobility is really good and the skateboard's gone. We have 1 Bird Keeper, which is also a Switch effect, and you get to draw 3 cards, which is very nice because it's also a consistency card while making sure you can switch your Pokemon when you need to. And then the last switching card here is Mallow Lana, which also heals 120. So that could be really useful if like an Eternatus deck is setting up damage and then wants to clean up later with Zigzagoon, something like that. So Galarian Slowbro V is going to be the only way we have to apply poison for the G-Max Riot. Now let's take a look at our other attackers in the deck. We have Boltund V, which can be a fairly good starting Pokemon. It has the attack Electrify. Search your deck for up to 2 Lightning Energy cards and attach them to your benched Pokemon in any way you like, then shuffle your deck. So if you go second, obviously you can't evolve Toxtricity VMAX going second. There's not a ton you can do with this deck, but there are 2 fairly good starting Pokemon for going second. So maybe you start Galarian Slowbro V, poison your opponent's active Pokemon, play Night City, retreat into Boltund, and electrify 2 energy onto some of your Pokemon. It also has Bolt Storm, which without Electropower, I feel like this attack is underwhelming now. But we are playing, I believe, 12 energy in this deck. Yes, 12. So you can get a fair amount of energy on the board with Electrify, with Coco Prism, with Turbo Patch, and do a decent amount of damage for Bolt Storm. but I don't see it hitting insane numbers like it used to. But Boltund V is a really, really good Lightning type card, and I expect it to be in just about any Lightning type deck that might come out in Standard. We also have Vikavolt V, which is a good Pokemon for going second. So it has 210 HP. It has the Paralyzing Bolt attack, Lightning colorless to do 50 and item lock your opponent. They can't play item cards from their hand next turn. And also Super Zap Cannon for 190, discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. So Paralyzing Bolt, if you're going second and you can get the energy plus Koko or the energy plus Turbo Patch and Paralyzing Bolt your opponent, that could really, really slow them down. And if you have the Galarian Slowbro going as well, you could easily just turn into a Vikavolt deck by circumstance and start item locking your opponent while you set up a threatening bench. So Vikavolt V, another really great tool that Lightning type Pokemon have. Like I said, there are some really strong Lightning type things that have rotated with the Standard format, but the type still has a really good support system here with Vikavolt, with Boltund, Tapucoco Prism, Speed, Lightning Energy. So I don't think that the Lightning type is going to completely fall off, and I think Vikavolt V and Boltund V are two reasons why. Before we get to our draw support, just a quick look at Tapu Koko Prism, one of the most important tools that Lightning got to keep with the Standard format rotation. Its ability, Dance of the Ancients. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may choose 2 of your benched Pokemon and attach a Lightning Energy card from your discard pile to each of them. If you do, discard all cards from this Pokemon and put it in the Lost Zone, so this is a really good energy acceleration to get 2 basic Lightning Energies onto the board as early as turn 1, and then you can attach to one of those, maybe even Turbo Patch to one of those Pokemon as well. You get energy moving onto the board quicker, especially with Thunder Mountain gone. It's really, really important to get Koko Prism and try to get the full value out of it, and hopefully you don't prize Koko Prism. As for draw support, it's kind of the basic lineup I've been seeing in a ton of decks. We've got the 2 Dedenne with DAA change to dump your hand, draw 6. We've got Crobat, when you play it down, draw up to 6. And we have the Eldegoss with Happy Match, get a supporter from the discard pile to your hand. That's kind of the generic support Pokemon lineup I've been seeing. Dedenne plus Crobat is really nice because if you're digging for something specific like that last energy, a Turbo Patch to try to flip, the Koko Prism, you can go Dedenne and Crobat in the same turn, and then maybe even a supporter after that to keep digging for that card or the combination of cards that you may need. So that's all of the Pokemon. Before we go on to the trainers and the energy, as far as Pokemon that I was considering for this deck, I was thinking about Tapu Koko, the non-GX, non-V, non-whatever Tapu Koko with Electric Ball, just because this deck doesn't have an amazing out to Decidueye decks. Decidueye cannot be hit by V or GX Pokemon. The only non-V or non-GX Pokemon we have here is Tapu Koko, and we would like to use that to accelerate our energies, not to attack. So my thought process was you can poison the Decidueye with Rapid Fire Poison, and then swing with Electric Ball, and after Electric Ball it needs 3 Poison Ticks to be knocked out. Now Decidueye will usually try to wall with just a single Decidueye on the board, so hopefully they won't be able to switch in and out. Maybe they have 2 Decidueye set up. But if you were thinking about going down this line for the Decidueye matchup, maybe you would tech this in and maybe even consider another Pokemon. Versus Decidueye without any other techs, though, I think your best bet is trying to win the game with Paralyzing Bolt. Maybe you go second, hope they can't get really set up, and just Paralyzing Bolt them to lock them out of items until you win that way. If Decidueye is becoming more popular and you wanted to play this deck, then I do think a couple of techs, or even maybe 1 tech, might be a good option in case that Paralyzing Bolt route doesn't work. Maybe even just adding in a second Vikavolt V, since it is just a generally good card, and maybe try to have better chance of getting that set up against the Decidueye matchup. So let's look at our supporters first real quick. We have 4 Professor's Research, discard your hand, draw 7. We have 2 Marnie. Each player shuffles their hand and put it on the bottom of their deck. You draw 5, your opponent draws 4. We have 3 bosses ordered to gust up one of your opponent's benched Pokemon, and like we already looked at, we have 1 Bird Keeper and 1 Mallow Lana. So the 4 Professor's Research, 2 Marnie, and 1 Bird Keeper brings us up to 7 draw supporters. Now, I do think 7 might be a little low, but we also do have the speed energy, which draws us cards to keep in mind. And we do have a pretty good ball search engine going on here. So let's go over to the items now. So there are 4 Quick Ball in the deck. Quick Ball is very important. 4 of in just about any deck you'll see in standard format. And then Great Ball. Now, I think there's a decision here between Great Ball or Pokemon Communication. With 17 Pokemon, it might be a little bit low for Pokemon Communication because maybe you only have 1 Pokemon in your hand and you need it. But Great Ball can also be a bit low with 17 Pokemon. But I do think playing either one of them is correct. I personally might like to see the Pokemon line bumped up to 18 Pokemon or 19 Pokemon and play for Pokemon Communication, but Great Ball is a great card as well. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may get a Pokemon from there, put it into your hand, shuffle the rest of the cards into your deck. So for Great Ball, I like it. Maybe if there's something else you wanted to add, you could drop the 4th Great Ball, but going for max consistency is very good, especially right after a rotation when a format is fresh and not all decks are refined. It's better to be the more refined deck and more consistent deck, and maybe not have all the bells and whistles that some other lists might have, and it may end up letting you perform well and more consistently than others. We also have 4 Switch. Like I mentioned, it's good to have mobility. We mentioned the 3 Dark City. I wouldn't hate to see a Viridian Forest just to help us discard these energies for the Coco Prism and the Turbo Patch. And let's look at the Turbo Patch now. So flip a coin of heads, attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your basic Pokemon that isn't a Pokemon GX. So this could go to anything in the deck other than Dedenne-GX or Toxtricity VMAX, since it does have to be basic. But I really like Turbo Patch. It helps the consistency of getting your Toxtricity's G-Max Riot attack off as soon as possible. Turn 1, it'll essentially allows you to go turn 1 attach, and then turn 2 you either have to flip a coin and flip heads for Turbo Patch and attach, or you have to get a Coco Prism attachment off and attach to get your 3 energy on Toxtricity VMAX. So it allows you to not only have one route to getting your turn 2 G-Max Riot. You could get both Turbo Patch and Tapucoco Prism and have extra energy on the board. But playing the Coco Prism and the 4 Turbo Patch allows you to have multiple outs to getting your extra energy down, which is really important. Like I said, Thunder Mountain is not in standard anymore, so having this extra out to energy is really good. The last card is Reset Stamp. Now, I do really like to see Reset Stamp come in 2s. Especially in a deck with a fair amount of discarding. This deck does have 2 Dedenne-GX, it has 4 Professor's Research, and Reset Stamp is never going to be worth not researching your hand away in the early game when you need to draw more cards. So 1 Restamp is fine, 1 Reset Stamp, yeah, is fine. I would like to see 2, but I'm not sure if any of the cards I mentioned that might be cuttable would be worth cutting for a second Reset Stamp. So 1 is fine for now. So if your opponent knocks out a Toxtricity VMAX and then a Vikavolt, or a Vikavolt and Toxtricity VMAX goes down to 1 prize and you can hit a stamp there, that's great. If not, you can always Marnie them as well to maybe disrupt their hand a little bit if stamp is not if you can't hit stamp when you need it at the moment. But yeah, 1 stamp is fine. I'd probably prefer having 1 than none, but I think 2 is the sweet spot for Reset Stamp usually. And then for energy, we have 4 Speed Lightning. When you attach it to a Lightning Pokemon, you get to draw 2 cards. This card is very good. And then also 8 basic Lightning Energy. For the 60 card deck of Toxtricity VMAX, of course, credits to Andy M for submitting this list. So just to recap the changes I would consider making, with Mallow Lana, Bird Keeper, and 4 Switch, maybe you could go down to 2 Dark City instead of 3. Another thing is if Chaotic Swell becomes very prevalent in the metagame, you might want to consider adding a Marshadow Reset Hole if Dark City is very important to get out the Chaotic Swell, so you don't have to dump a Dark City for just bumping the Swell, and the next turn you have to play another one down. That might even get removed by another Stadium. If you don't want to remove the Dark City, potentially removing a Bird Keeper or a Mallow Lana, since you have both of those switching supporters in the deck. If Mallow Lana tends to be helping in your practice, then with the healing, then get rid of Bird Keeper. But if Bird Keeper comes through for draw support, I'd say keep that one. That's just if you want to make cuts. I think this deck is very good. The list is very good as it is. But like I was mentioning, if you're expecting to run into Decidueye, you might want to prepare for that. And you might want to also bump up the reset stamp count to 2 if you feel like that end game stamp is just really, really crucial when playing this deck. So I hope you enjoyed this deck profile for Toxtricity VMAX, especially if this is one of your favorite VMAX cards and it's a deck you wanted to build around in a new standard format. When the rotation happens and the format is fresh, there's always a chance for new decks to break out and to perform well with some decks that weren't really thriving in the pre-rotation meta, which you might have already been seeing. I've gotten to be playing a lot with Inteleon VMAX, and some people have been finding success with that, so I'm happy that Inteleon VMAX has been shining. So maybe it can also be time for Toxtricity VMAX, especially if cards like Inteleon and Lapras that are weak to Lightning are around, then Toxtricity sounds really great in this time. So like I said, hope you enjoyed the deck profile. The list will be down in the description below. If you're interested in joining my Patreon, you can find the link down there, and of course hit me with any questions you have about that if you're interested. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to see more content like this in the future, like the video because it really does help me reach a new audience, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.